This episode is made possible by NetSuite by Oracle and Brex, the AI-powered spend platform.
Hi, it's Nikki Heim, CFO of LogicSource, and you are listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 1022.
Acquisition that we did in August of last year was a distributor of ours in Iberia, in Europe. So now they're part of the portfolio, and they're now selling not just the products they were selling before of ours, but now the complete complement of products across Spain and Portugal, which is great. And additionally, we get to capture that incremental third-party margin that they were getting as a distributor selling. And so overall, BVI's margin lifts as well as a result of now effectively going direct in those markets versus utilizing that middleman.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we speak with Todd Patriacca, CFO of BVI Medical. Todd Patriacca was more than a dozen years into his finance career when two things happened that accelerated its trajectory. The first was he found a mentor, or rather, that his future mentor found him. The second was that he became immersed in lean culture. You'll hear that story and much more on today's episode. We'll begin after this. CFOs and controllers, does expense management feel like a necessary evil? It's time to switch to Brex. Brex automates and accelerates spend management with easy-to-use corporate cards, travel, expense management, and bill pay, all on one AI-powered platform. Brex makes it easy to boost efficiency and compliance enterprise-wide and free up your managers, employees, and accounting team for higher impact work. Top companies from startups to enterprises are using Brex to automate manual work and transform their finance operations. We're talking DoorDash, Robinhood, Airtable, and countless other industry leaders. Ready to join them? Switch to AI-powered spend management at Brex.com. Hello, we're speaking with Todd Patriacca, CFO of BVI Medical. Todd, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jack. Happy to be here.
So, as always, we begin by asking the guest to look back. And what we want you to find out or identify for us are those experiences you feel prepared you for this role. When you look back, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that come to mind for me. The most important one was I had a really good mentor and was in a very supportive organization. This wasn't at BVI where I'm currently, because I was a CFO before I got to BVI. But I had a CFO that was a great mentor. He started a couple of years after I'd been a corporate controller at a company, and sat down with me and specifically laid out, here are the things that I think we need to expose you to that will, catapult you to and be ready to be a CFO. And it was, exposure to things around tax, treasury. I had the accounting side of things and the audit side of things, but it's IT, tax, treasury, operations, and dealing with all of those different areas. How is investor relations going to play into it? And we came up with a plan on how we were going to get me exposure to those areas under his tutelage, and it worked swimmingly. We started with tax as an obvious area to report under me, and then moved into treasury, and then ultimately into internal audit and IT. And having that support structure, I think, was critical to me, because there was someone who took a real commitment in my career and making sure that I was going to be able to check, if not all the boxes, every box possible to make me a really good CFO candidate in the future, whether it was within that company or, if it wasn't available in that company, I could move on to another location, another organization. So I think that was one of the biggest things. And he really, he allowed me to, jump into things that I had no experience in and let me sort of sink and swim and learn on the fly, which was great. He let me run a financing for an acquisition that we did, which really allowed me to work directly with the bankers and cobble together the agreement that we would ultimately be signing up for. And I think that was a huge thing. And then related to that, was involvement in M&A transactions, which prior to getting involved with, that organization and then continuing on here at BVI, very acquisitive organizations, and going in and doing that due diligence and understanding how a business is running and looking at it critically on where could we get synergies and where are the opportunities to really drive more value, where could we fold it in and use our economies of scale to really leverage that business and make it even more profitable and more valuable to our stakeholders. And seeing that perspective and, working with those investment bankers and business development folks really started to give me an appreciation for sort of the complete business and how do you go about assessing a business and its performance and where you think you might be able to take it to based on, processes and scales of economy that you have within, your existing organization. So I think that was really critical too. And frankly, it also is one of the more fun areas to be involved in too, is going and looking at other companies and working on a deal. And then off of that, you had a financing, which again was, tied right into getting that treasury exposure and negotiating with bankers and how far can you push the market before, it's not going to be achievable. And that was a really interesting and exciting thing to learn. And has been one of my favorite parts about, being a CFO, is being involved in that type of stuff. And then the last thing, which, I'll talk about more as we go on, is, my exposure to lean. And initially it was, within the manufacturing arena, and, working in a company that had a lean manufacturing culture and they wanted all their employees to get exposed to it. But ultimately, utilizing lean in finance, I think has been another area where it's really benefited me as a CFO. And I'll talk about that more on just some of the things we've done at BVI and at other companies that I think have been really impactful to the businesses, and really helped to build a stronger finance culture and a better team of players.
Wow, nice overview for us. But I'm curious, the emphasis you placed on that mentor. And again, people go their entire careers looking for this individual. And maybe you had up until that point. You might scratch your head today. What if I met him 8 years earlier?
Yeah.
Or that situation came to be. Because here's the thing, and I'm looking at your resume. One of the things I find interesting, it looks like you were, and we've had quite a few finance leaders with Arthur Andersen up until 2002. And we know what happened there. But you had invested 9 years of your career.
Yep.
And my thought was like, wow, he might have stayed there another 3 or 4 years. I mean, he might have stayed there had Andersen not collapsed.
Yeah.
Who was he back then? He was kind of content until he met this mentor who kind of helped you catch fire or something. Or am I wrong?
No, you're partially right. But Arthur Andersen, I loved public accounting. I think it gives a really great overview of business for accounting educated folks, and it gives you a very different perspective. I enjoyed it a lot. I had a really cool client base being based in Boston. There was a lot of high tech and biotech and everything, but back then I had manufacturing and construction, which was really, I really enjoyed that. But what frankly I ended up separating from Arthur Andersen 3 months or so before they officially fell apart. And I did not want to be a salesperson. And I was getting to that point in my career where I was getting evaluated more and more on practice development and, what I was bringing into the Boston office in revenues. And that wasn't an area that I wanted to focus on. So I ended up, it was dumb luck. An opportunity popped up and I jumped on it. And, I ended up, as we used to joke, I went over to the dark side, the private company, outside of public accounting, and never looked back. And now I think our auditors probably look at me as I'm a crazy person because I've gone full circle and embraced the company side of things versus the public accounting. But that mentor, it is interesting. If I had met him before, I wonder where my career might be now. He's now retired. I still talk to him frequently and bounce questions off of him, and get to my wife and I and he and his wife still get together for dinner, and he'll be a resource for as long as I can possibly use him.
And I want to also point out that you spent nearly 10 years at Arthur Andersen and then 18 years at this one company, Ultra Industrial Motion, where you eventually do step into the CFO office. And that's where your mentor was, of course. So you're someone who's invests years. What does that say about you? And do you ever stop and think, I could have done this differently? And I don't see why. I think you succeeded. You're there. But I'm wondering, we don't see that often.
No, and you're right. When I reflected back, when I was pulling my resume together when I was pursuing the BVI opportunity, I'm careful about where I go and where I end up trying to work. A lot of it ends up being the people. I got to be honest, when I went to Arthur Andersen, I went through a graduate school program at Northeastern University in Boston. And part of the application process was you had to interview with the different, at the time, the big six accounting firms. You needed to have one of the firms actually be willing to take you on as a hire once you graduated as part of the enrollment process, application process. And I loved Andersen. I loved everybody I met there. I loved their view of, it was one firm globally. It wasn't all the little firms everywhere. And I liked the fact that there were a lot of people who had been there for years. And I really did enjoy it until I got to that sales part of it. And then the same thing with Ultra. It was a private equity backed business when I first joined. It was really exciting what they were building. I loved the people. And we took it ultimately. We took it public, and then we sold the business to another public company a little more than a year ago now. I'm still stayed in touch with all the folks I work with over there. I've actually hired some of the folks from there over to BVI to help supplement our team at BVI. And I think that's been really important to me. And it was one of the things that really attracted me to BVI was the people, the board, the leadership team, where they wanted to take the business. And just how they ran the business. They had gone from a much smaller consumables business to a much broader ophthalmic business through acquisitions. And they never, they're not losing that entrepreneurial sort of spirit and that nimbleness that you like in an entrepreneurial environment where you can jump around and pivot and make quick decisions to help serve your customers and stuff. And that's one of the great things about BVI is that we are always putting the customer first.
We want to ask you some questions about BVI Medical, but I'm just curious about that segue. Again, 18 years, Ultra, as you described, there was a transaction near the very end. When you do join BVI, I don't think it's a recruiter. I would guess it's from your network and the private equity connections you also have, or how would you characterize it?
So, no, it actually was through a recruiter.
Wow, that guy finally made some money.
They finally made some money.
18 years waiting for
that's right.
Todd to make the move.
That's right. So, with the sale of Ultra, it was very public, and everybody knew I'd be out of a job. So I did get a lot of inbounds. Primarily, there was an industrial manufacturing company, so I did get a lot of inbounds from industrial. But then I got, an interesting reach out from BVI. And, one of the things that I learned that they were looking for was to try to find somebody outside of medical device. And get somebody to come in from a different industry, maybe with some different expectations. Clearly someone coming from a different profit profile company as well. Being an industrial manufacturing company, we did not have 60% gross profit margins. And I think one of the goals was to bring a bit more rigor to some of the processes that we had at BVI, and put some more control around some of the spend, and bring a different perspective versus typically we've hired out of med device and specifically out of ophthalmology, and those. There's a finite number of companies to be able to get people from. So they wanted to, I think, shake things up a little bit and bring a different perspective in that might change things and shake it up a bit.
All right. Well, great segue for us then. Tell us a little bit about BVI Medical then. What is this company about? What are its offerings?
Yeah, so we are a diversified surgical ophthalmic business, right, really focused on the surgery theater, the operating theater. We have a broad range of medical device products, even though some of these things I don't know. I wouldn't have traditionally considered it a device, not being in this space, but we make intraocular lenses, capital equipment, consumables that are used within the surgery, as well as surgical fluids. So we support cataract surgeries, refractive surgeries, glaucoma, vitreoretinal procedures, and dry eye. So basically everything in ophthalmic surgery, we've got products, to support that. Over the years, the company has done a really good job of acquiring complementary companies to broaden the product portfolio, and now we have a very complete product offering. The base business was based on the consumables. We've got a brand of knives and blades that's been around for decades, and was and is still one of the premier brands within this space. And we've added onto it with cannulas and all your forceps and all these other products, but as well as cotton swabs and drapes and all the other things that you might need in there. And leveraging that, started acquiring some equipment companies and acquired an IOL manufacturer for the lenses, and creating this complete product portfolio, while continuing to invest in new development activities. And we've got a couple of new product launches that will be coming out in the not too distant future, and really positioning us well to support those product launches with this complete portfolio of products, so that you can use that equipment platform to pull in the other consumable products, those captive consumables, as well as the other discretionary consumables, and really be a real one-stop shop for all of our customers and surgeons, where they can get everything they need. And we've tried to, make it even more accommodating for our customers. So one of the things that we do that we've been getting tremendous success on is we make custom packs. So Surgeon Smith over here, wants his surgical pack set up in such a way so that this knife is on top, and then this drape is here, and this sponge is there, so that the nurse just opens that thing up. The doctor doesn't need to even lift his head up off the microscope. He just reaches in, and the next tool that he wants is right there in the order that he wants. And we provide those for them and create the safety stock and, ship that to them so that they can make their surgeries as efficient as possible, so that they can maximize their revenues and their profits ultimately. So it's a really, it's an exciting business. We've done a number of acquisitions over the last 7-8 years, and really leverage that base platform that they had to make this a full spectrum business for ophthalmic surgery. And it's, and the nice thing about where we are as a company is that we're still a smaller player. We are in 90 countries, but we're not in 90 countries with every single product. It takes time to get them registered and everything else. So there's still a lot of opportunity here for us to grow this business at, pace better than the market as we expand into new geographies, get products registered in the U.S. For example, we're in the process now of launching our Fine Vision IOL product in the U.S., which is something we've implanted over 1 million of these around the rest of the world, but needed to get through an FDA clinical trial, and which we just wrapped up the last patient last visit a couple of months ago, now compiling all of the study data, and we'll get that submitted to the FDA and hopefully have that launched sometime soon thereafter. But that's a great opportunity for us, right? Because we're not selling any IOLs in the U.S. right now, but it's a quarter of our business, the U.S. So that's going to be, that's going to accelerate our growth. And these new products, we're doing this in Japan right now. We're every 6 months or so, we're launching a new product in Japan. So we're enjoying outsized growth and some new product launches. So a lot of exciting things happening at BVI right now.
So you arrived in May of 2023.
Correct.
So we're more than a year into your tenure. Those acquisitions happened prior to your arrival, I think. There hasn't been any. Has there been an acquisition on your watch? Or?
Yeah, we did one acquisition that closed in August of last year. So I was involved in that more so at the later stages after a lot of the due diligence had been done, but we were, starting to, finalize the purchase and sale agreement and working with our sponsor on how we were going to finance it. So it was involved in that one, but most of them were prior to me getting there.
You emphasized up front for us those product launches that are coming up or happening. Are you going to be as acquisitive, or it sounded like you're putting these product launches are the things that are occupying your team's time, I would think.
Yeah.
How am I doing?
You're absolutely right. That has been a big focus. We're prioritizing a lot of capital to support those new product developments and those launches and building up the infrastructure to support that. That said, we will still be, opportunistically looking at acquisitions. There's probably still some product portfolio enhancements that we could make. One of the other things that we look at is, acquiring distribution partners in certain geographies and, being able to then, leverage their sales force in a geography. That acquisition that we did in August of last year was a distributor of ours in Iberia, in Europe. So now they're part of the portfolio, and they're now selling not just the products they were selling before of ours, but now the complete complement of products across Spain and Portugal, which is great. And additionally, we get to capture that incremental third party margin that they were getting as a distributor selling. And so overall, BVI's margin lifts as well as a result of now effectively going direct in those markets versus utilizing that middleman.
When you think about how you're using your finance team, their time, how it's dedicated, I'm curious, coming from Altra, where you had you grew up with that finance function, really.
Yep.
Coming here, you noticed, we can't do it exactly that way. We're going to have to do this a little differently. I'm just curious if you organize things a little differently and what maybe some of the choices you've made.
Yeah.
Or maybe you reorganized your FP&A folks in some way.
Yeah. So, when I first got here, spent some time, this was a new industry for me. So I needed to understand better, how they
sounds like you got a medical degree in the last year. I imagine. Yeah.
BVI has some really, I got to give BVI credit. The training materials that they have to onboard somebody are fantastic, much better than anything we ever had at Ultra. I felt like I was back in my high school biology class, learning about the anatomy of an eye and what all the ailments are and everything else, as well as learning all about our products. But very different way, of how we go to market commercially, as well as just on the manufacturing side. Right, it's a regulated industry. So you can't just do what a finance guy would say. Just change the supplier, right? You got to get them qualified. You got to get all the approvals and everything else, and make sure that the quality is right before you can go and change things. So it's a little more difficult to make some of these moves. So I spent some time, assessing the group. There's a very well-functioning team, dealing with, a typical situation with a lot of acquisitions, multiple ERP systems that all didn't play nice together. And how do you have an overlay system that can pull all that information together, either on the business intelligence side or just from the financial reporting side of things. But then, stepped back and started, I had some ideas on, where some work might need to be done based on my conversations with our CEO and with the board during my interview process, but really learned, what was going on. And I did make some changes. One of the things, we're working on now is we set up a center of excellence in Poland. We had very decentralized operations, and I'm not opposed to decentralized operations generally, but certain things, I think, lend themselves well to being centralized, and having a group that performs those functions very efficiently, very well, allows you to take advantage of automation and begin to, to be able to scale and support a scaling operation. We started that journey last year with a center of excellence in Poland, and we've been adding to that and transitioning components of our business into that shared services center, that center of excellence, around accounts payable, FP&A support, and pricing, and accounts receivable and payable. So that was one of the first, big steps. Also worked to better align within the organization the group of folks who are really supporting the manufacturing operations. So helping with the costing and understanding the transfer pricing and, what the absorption's looking like, really, supporting the operations versus the accounting financial reporting, and making sure that we had those aligned appropriately, and that all of our manufacturing locations were getting, the support that they need, and making those changes. So it wasn't, I didn't bust up the whole group or anything like that. I did, make some changes. I felt that there were some positions that were combined that I've since separated, because I felt it was too much for one person to be able to handle, and we could benefit. So split treasury and financial operations, even though they're closely connected from a cash flow perspective. It was too much for one person to do, and we really needed to have a full-time treasury professional to deal with. We have a very complex organization, so moving cash we spend a lot of time getting it where we need it to be effectively and efficiently, without any leakage. So we got to spend a lot of time there. So made some changes like that, and then on a go forward basis, we've got I think a lot of exciting things to do within the finance area, and there's a lot of opportunity here, just around foundational improvements. As well as leveraging some of the experiences I've had in my past that I think are going to lend themselves very well to BVI in the future.
Do you have when it comes to automation, do you have a philosophy about it? Like, do you set expectations, or are you a skeptic in some way? Let's take some baby steps first and then see how we do. And
that is how I've historically operated. I got some good advice from my mentor in the past, especially around software. You don't want to buy software that's just going to sit on the shelf. Right? Because it's a waste of money. So you always need to, balance the IT resource bandwidth with what, you're going to get for a benefit from this. Can you actually implement it? And all of that. Where I've historically focused on IT automation has been around the areas. The way I look at it is our customers are not paying us to, collect from other customers, or to pay our vendors, or to process our payroll, or any of those internal costs that we need to incur to run our business. So I look at those areas as opportunities for us to really leverage automation to maximize the flow and cost effectiveness of those functions, right? Because a customer doesn't care if we pay our vendors on time or pay them at all. They just want their product for the price they want to pay. So we need to do that as effectively and as efficiently as possible. And that's one of the things we're doing with the Center of Excellence is standardizing processes, which will allow us to implement more automation and get to a point, I have an example from, a previous company from Ultra where, we had, accounts payable in the US, 80% of our invoices that had POs never touched a person. Because we worked really hard on the upstream and the downstream processes to make sure that purchase orders had the right price, the right quantities, so that when we got the invoice, it would match. We worked with people on how to receive things in so that the system could do all that work. And then we could have, the brain power of the group focusing on the exceptions and the one-offs. That's where you want to focus the brain power and let the computer do the rest of the work for the stuff that is following the process. So really stressing that that standard work to the team, that the process needs to be repeatable. That way we've got redundancy in our workforce. We can easily spot exceptions because if it's not following that standard process, then it's an exception and then gives you the opportunity to go figure out what was the root cause and go fix that so it doesn't happen again. So really focusing on those types of areas from an automation standpoint. We are excited about AI and what opportunities there might be there for us. We're just starting to dip our toes in the water here on that. But we think there's some opportunities around forecasting and inventory management. We have a tremendous number of SKUs. If you think about, IOLs, they're effectively just, implantable glasses. And if you think about all the variability and diopters and astigmatism and everything else you got out there, that's a lot of inventory to manage and everything. And we use statistical models that we've generated over a significant amount of time to try to do our sales forecasting and our inventory management forecasting. But I think there's ways to utilize AI down the road where we're going to be able to leverage that for forecasting, and we'll probably get more accurate forecasts, because they'll be able to take in other external data potentially on the aging population, right? Looking back and using statistical models isn't going to pick up the fact that, we got a big slug of baby boomers, coming in because, we didn't have as big of a population that was having cataract surgery 20 years ago. So I think there's going to be some real opportunities for us down the road. One of the challenges we have is just, again, with all the different ERP systems, finding the data that we can use out of each of these systems to be able to populate into a database that the AI tool would be able to generate something from has been a challenge for us to understand what does that baseline data need to look like. But really excited about the prospects, and we've been talking with some outside vendors on some opportunities to see if there's some test programs we might be able to run to start trying to see if this really could be valuable to us, which we believe it will be ultimately.
Well, Todd, several members of your FP&A team are down the hall in a conference room, senior members, and they're having a sort of a conference. Todd swings open the door. What are they thinking Todd's about to ask them about? What is he asking for?
Yeah. So what am I asking for? Trying to get, more transparent information out there, more visibility to our teams on what's going on within the operations.
Are you doing it via dashboard when you talk about those numbers and transparency? How do you,
Yep.
How is it being done?
Yeah. So we have a monthly process called Site Week. where we get together. It's basically our operating review. We're looking at the financials, but we're also doing sales reviews, manufacturing reviews, quality, new product development, and the like. So one of the things we've done is over the past years, we've been enhancing all of those standard reports. So now, when our regions are doing their, monthly reviews of their sales performance and product line performance and everything else, those are all now standard, so that we're comparing apples to apples, and that all the that all the information we want to see on a monthly basis is being included. But then we're utilizing a lot of dashboards. So working capital has been a big area of focus for BVI over the past year, and especially in the last 6 months. So making that more transparent. So we've got some standard AP and AR dashboards to track, not only just general DPO and general DSO, but what's our best possible DSO, right? What's the best we could do based on the terms we're, giving our customers through the sales organization, and, using that as are we going in the right direction, or are the sales guys giving away terms? And then looking at what we call the levered terms. This is what, the extra days the customer is taking to pay us, or on the flip side, the extra days we're taking to pay one of our suppliers. So making that, more visible, because, one of the things that, I'm hoping that we'll be able to do over time too, is that, we have not necessarily negotiated the best terms with our suppliers, over the years. We now have a centralized procurement function, and they're working actively on stretching, the terms to get them more in line with where our customers pay us. But there was never really that matching of the two sides of the inflows and the outflows, to make sure that we were getting an appropriate matching between our customers and our suppliers. Things like customer holds. Historically, we didn't have a lot of visibility around, a customer that's not paying us. We'd put them on hold within finance, and the sales organization wouldn't know about it. So they, would be beating up the customer. Why aren't we getting these orders and stuff? And they're like, well, you put us on hold. So now getting that to be more visible, as well as at credit limits. So it's really making all of that information more available to the team. Like I said, we're very decentralized, scattered all over the globe. So we need to get this information out there, because we can't always overlap due to time zones. And we want our team to have as much information as possible, because, the AR side of things. I mean, sales guys want to generate sales. So you give them that information that they've got a customer that's not paying. They're going to go talk to that customer about getting them to pay, because they want that next order and that next commission. So making that more visible to the team has been, a big priority for us. And again, just reinforcing those foundational processes, and just, saying that, the way we apply cash, it doesn't need to be different, other than specific nuances in an ERP system. The general process is the same. The same for paying a bill. It's no different than me paying a bill at home. Creating that standard, repeatable work that we can then measure against, and create that environment of continuous improvement. And I got to say, with our Center of Excellence, the team there across every single function, super energized and really excited about the improvement opportunities that we have. My AP team has got a list of like 50 things that they're all excited about going and tackling. And we're going to have to do it over time, and we're going to need some automation in there as well. But they see all these opportunities that will ultimately drive a lot of value, reduce the overall cost to the organization for doing the processing, and create a better functioning team that we will then be able to scale as we do additional acquisitions, launch new products, and grow our overall business. So it's fun stuff that just builds on itself, which is really great.
So again, with a finance strategic moment, we always ask for one moment of insight that you've experienced along the way. I don't know how you go about choosing one. I've never offered advice in that respect, but what we're looking for is a sort of a strategic moment that you could reveals how finance is actually strategic because of your lines of sight. Might have happened back at Arthur Andersen. It might have happened last week.
Yeah.
But what comes to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
For me, yeah, it was around lean. Like I said, I came into a company that was embedded in lean from a manufacturing standpoint. Went to the required mandatory orientation session to learn about it, and then, when I moved into a senior management role and started getting more involved out at the manufacturing locations in lean activities, really started to see that, and as I got to understand it better, that it's a continuous improvement mindset, one, but it's improving processes. And yes, it's always been tethered in manufacturing. I just stepped back and said, well, finance, there's a lot of processes in finance. So we should be able to take all these tools and apply them in tax, in a shared services center, in, our monthly reporting processes. And how could we leverage lean and the methodologies within lean within finance? And, there's been lean accounting out there, and we, took a look at lean accounting and how we could use it. We actually had, I've had, some businesses where we actually ran the business utilizing lean accounting, and it presents some challenges. And frankly, a lot of businesses aren't ready to be able to do that. Either they don't turn inventory enough to comply with the accounting rules to be able to use lean or whatever it is. But this was more than just lean accounting. It was really, embedding that continuous improvement mindset within a finance organization, and ultimately trying to create a large population of problem solvers, and utilizing those lean frameworks to go about solving those problems in a systematic way, and linking it all back to these different, these different guideposts within lean. So I keep saying standardizing all of our processes, right? Standard work is, one of the cornerstones of lean, because it allows you to measure, are you deviating from what you thought was the standard process? And, getting finance folks to understand that, processing an accounts payable invoice, that's a process. We should be able to repeat it. We should have a standard. And if we deviate from the standard, we need to go understand what's causing that deviation. And it was applicable everywhere. So utilizing that. So, I had an experience where we went through an ERP conversion. We were going to be converting over to SAP, and I jumped on that to say, I want to set up a shared service center, and I'm going to set it up like I'm setting up a new manufacturing location. So, so I got buy-in and, bought workstations for the employees so that they were all, sort of close together. Wanted this to be able to be visually managed by the manager so that she could walk around her team of 6 AP analysts and, be able to see, is someone, falling behind, just giant stack of invoice, but make everything very visual. It's the same process so that, if she saw someone falling behind, you could shift work to another associate who maybe didn't have as much work that day. But she knew throughout the day where they were in accounts payable. And then you can keep driving it more and more. And like I was saying, we had the upstream and the downstream processes. We wanted to make that first time pass through rate really high. So we first started with, okay, where are the problems? Which locations have the lowest first time pass through rate, and then started carving that back. And it's really powerful. And when you start to see your associates understand that, they're empowered to make changes, they're doing the work, they know more intimately than anybody what causes them problems. And it's no different than someone working in a manufacturing floor that, you could see, someone, the agony in their face because they're lifting something too heavy. And, you need to give them some sort of lifting device to help them with it. It's the same thing. These people know in the back office, what's causing them problems and delays and, wasting their time, and empowering them to improve that, it is powerful. And they really appreciate that. And they're the ones who know best. So I've really, that was my sort of one of my aha moments. And I've been trying to take it now and apply it throughout every finance function I have. I don't want to see a different report every single month and try to understand what you're telling me here. I want to see the same report. If we need to make enhancements to it, by all means, let's make enhancements to it. But I don't want the format changing every single month. Let's figure out how we want it. What's that standard that we want to strive to? And it's like I said, utilized it in tax. We utilized it. We're utilizing it now at BVI with our Center of Excellence transition and creating those standard, processes, creating that standard reporting. Just getting the exceptions out of the process as much as we can. And it makes it for a much better process. The associates are happier. It frees up capacity because now you're doing things more efficiently. That was one of the mind-blowing things to me about lean when I first started learning about it was, initially I thought it was just, it's a way to cut costs and eliminate people and stuff. But the true essence of it is to eliminate waste and increase your capacity, right? You don't want to get rid of the people that you've got working for you because it takes a lot of money and time and effort to hire people and retain them. You want to create more capacity so that your sales folks can go out and sell more. And now you've got more ability to build more, which then grows your revenue and everybody's a winner in the process. So when I've really understood that that's, what you're trying to do with lean. It isn't a way to cut costs. It's a way to eliminate waste and grow your business and make it more efficient and more cost effective. So overall, you're a more profitable business with the resources you have. It's powerful. I learned through this whole project, inventory is waste. And I know a lot of people will argue with me that inventory is not waste, but, perfect world, customer doesn't want to pay me to bring in extra inventory and pay to store it and insure it and everything else. Customer wants me to bring in inventory the morning I need to make the product, and ship it out to them. So ideal world, you'd get shipments of all the inventory you need every day to build what you need that day. And then you ship it out at the end of the day and you have no inventory. We all know that that's really hard to get to. But understanding, how do you go from annual shipments, which maybe have the lowest unit cost, to monthly shipments, which have a slightly higher unit cost, but now you've eliminated financing costs, storage costs, insurance costs. So is that now better for you? And you've freed up more storage space, and you've freed up some of your cash flow to put into other areas. So it's really exciting, especially a business like BVI, which is still early on in its maturity and its evolution. That we're able to do a lot of these things, and I've got someone on the operating side of the business, who's really leading the charge on the manufacturing and implementing lean within our BVI production facilities, and marrying up these same concepts in finance with the operation side. I think we'll start to see more of that cascade through the organization.
Can I ask you, your brand, your CFO brand today lean is a big part of it. It seems to have influenced how you think even broadly about business today. And my point is when should finance career builders get exposed to lean? When do you early, as soon as possible, or is there a sort of a critical milestone after they've been in finance for a number of years? I don't know.
I think as early as possible. At Ultra, we had a very formal orientation program, and I started mandating that every new finance hire, from an AR associate up to a business unit controller, had to go through our lean orientation training, that they had to familiarize themselves because it was part of our culture. I think exposure to it earlier is always better, just so it starts getting to be part of your mindset. Right? It's really hard, and I struggled with it early on as well. It's really hard not to have pride and ownership. Right? You create something, you think you've done a really good job, it's working, and then someone comes along and says, "Hey, have you thought about doing this?" And your instant reaction is, "Well, no, this works. Why would we change it?" But let's call it as I see it, is none of us are perfect. none of us ever reach perfection. There's always going to be an opportunity to improve something. But being comfortable with letting someone, poke holes in a process you have, or some report that you developed, or whatever it is, it's hard. And getting comfortable that it's not a critique necessarily of your work, it's an improvement opportunity, and taking that as an improvement opportunity, which benefits the business and the overall enterprise, is something we should all want to do. Because at the end of the day, we all want to maximize the performance of the enterprise. So anything we can do to help that, we should be embracing. And I think that's a tough concept to get over. So I think, the earlier you start getting comfortable with that, the better, because I think the more secure you are in your career, you start thinking that, I got 30 years of experience, right? I know exactly what I'm doing, and this is the right way to do it. But that's not right. There's I can always learn. I used to have a lean leader who used to comment about how he would love getting non-manufacturing people involved in shop floor improvement events, because they'll ask the dumb questions because they don't know. And that's also a struggle when we have finance people within a finance improvement event. They don't want to be the ones to ask the dumb questions. So I've taken the flip side of that, and I'll bring a manufacturing person in for something to have them ask the dumb questions, because sometimes those dumb questions prompt something because you've been so embedded in those processes for so long that you can't see the forest for the trees. And when somebody asks you a question that another finance person might not ask because they don't want to, look stupid. Someone else who's not exposed to that area can ask it, and it prompts a great conversation. And that's one of the great things also about BVI is one of our values is collaboration. And we do a lot of cross-functional collaboration, partially because we do have a finite amount of people resources, but we need to have everybody working together and getting their perspectives, because we're functionally organized, and if one function is going down this path and that's counter to what this function is doing over there, we could completely get off our path. So having that collaboration is great. And using it also as an improvement opportunity is, I think is really powerful. So I think the earlier the better, because ultimately you want to have this as part of your culture, and have people, get excited about solving problems, getting comfortable raising their hand. Another great thing about BVI is, you'd never shoot the messenger. We want problems to get surfaced so that we can go solve them as quickly as we can. And that's, really critical to the culture. Yeah.
37,000, 25, 1. These are the three numbers to remember to get the visibility and control you need to make the right business decisions instantly. 37,000. That's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down expenses. 1. Because your business is one of a kind, you should get a customized solution for all of your KPIs in one efficient system and with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need, all in one place. Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance, absolutely free, at netsuite.com/KPI. That's netsuite.com/KPI.
We're going to ask you to reflect a little bit on the personal side. Inside the mentoring round, we kind of always do this. And we're wondering if there's something your colleagues might not know about you. Something might be an interest outside of work, might be some earlier chapter in your professional life or early personal life. Anything come to mind? Something most people don't know about you?
Yeah. Yeah. Back before I had children, and actually before I really started working, I was an avid skier. And, so I between undergraduate and graduate school, first I went cross country with my roommate and we drove around in a van for 3.5 months, traveled 17,000 miles in 33 states. And then I came back from that and I worked at a ski area up in New Hampshire, a little family owned ski area that I learned to ski on as a kid. And I was a fry cook. And I did it solely to get this letter from them, which allowed me to go and ski all over New England for free on my days off. So I spent the entire winter of 91, 92, somewhere in the Northeast on a ski hill, and really, really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but now, with my children, one of them was a hockey player, so I don't get to ski as much as I like to. Now I've pivoted and I'm a big fly fisherman, and I tie a lot of my own flies, actually almost all of my own flies. So when I die, my children are going to inherit probably a lot of unused feathers, fur, hooks, and other things that they will probably promptly throw into a dumpster.
What about a book selection or a resource for us? It might be a podcast or maybe it's a book. I always say it doesn't have to be a business book, just something you enjoyed.
Yeah, it goes back to lean again. One of the greatest books it's called The Lean Turnaround by Art Byrne. And it was about his experience at Wire Mold back in, I think it was in the 80s. It was a struggling business, and he took the Toyota production system and implemented it in there. And really what he did was he changed how they looked at the business and said, let's look at this from the perspective of the customer and all of the value add things that we do within the business. And how do we make sure we execute those well? And those other things that aren't adding value, how do we do those more efficiently? And really focusing on eliminating that waste. How do you accelerate the growth? How do you increase the capacity? It was a really interesting book to just read how he turned that around. And then he's since taken that to, I think he's gone on to 25, 30 other companies and done similar things. And now I believe he's working in private equity and doing a lot of that with portfolio companies within the private equity space. It was a really, and I will admit, it was a required read by our CEO. And everybody on the executive team had to read it. But it's one I carried it with me to BVI, and it's on my bookshelf in my office at BVI. And I still will every once in a while refer back to it and reread a chapter or two because it was meaningful. And it just helped demonstrate how powerful lean can be if it truly is embedded in the culture of the business.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks. A perfect book for this episode for us. So thank you for the reference. And we are up to our final question where we're going to ask you to look forward finally. And what we want to know are what your priorities are for the coming 12 months as CFO of BVI.
Yeah. So for me, I've got really probably three priorities. First is driving our cash flow. We're at a point in our evolution where that is, one of the most critical financial metrics for us, and maintaining compliance with all of our credit agreements, and weathering through some tighter cash flow periods. So really focused on that, and been spending a lot of time on trying to improve the processes there and our visibility around our cash flows and where we're generating our cash flows. Carrying on the standard work, continuing to push our center of excellence and leveraging the team there and putting more work there. As I mentioned, we've got all these product launches coming up on the equipment side. We're going to need to start looking at, a real, equipment compliance process and revenue recognition process through all of this. So that's an area. And then finally, something I call one version of the truth, and getting all of our financial systems all lined up and in sync. As we grew up through acquisition, a lot of different ERP systems, different cadences to how they can close the books and how quickly they can do it. So we utilize, business intelligence tools, as well as the ERP systems and the consolidation system, as well as other external reporting to report things up. And they don't always align exactly. So getting better visibility, one version of the truth, so that all of the numbers, ideally it would be great if they could all come out of the consolidation system, so that everybody, budgeted numbers versus actuals and all of that. But one version of the truth, so that, our lenders are getting information that, ties back to the budget presentation we provided to our sponsor, that ties back ultimately to the audited results that we have at the end of the year, and any internal management reports we're using throughout the year. Because there are, especially being a newcomer into the business, I often have questions about, well, why doesn't this tie over to this thing? It's still inventory. I would expect them both to be the same. So getting that alignment, and we're doing, a better and better job every month. But I think there's still more work we can do around that.
Todd Patriacca, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you very much, Jack. Appreciate it.
Hello, listeners. Jack here. I hope you've been enjoying some of our recent CFO Thought Leader episodes. To better serve you, we need your feedback. And our 2024 listener survey is now live. What do you like about CFO Thought Leader? What don't you like about CFO Thought Leader? This is what we call continuous improvement. We want to serve you better, but we can only do that by hearing from you. You'll find our 2024 survey right on the nav bar at cfothoughtleader.com. To demonstrate our gratitude, survey takers will receive a $10 savings coupon on the purchase of our new book, The CFO 500. Take the survey and the coupon is yours. Please help us serve you better. And as always, thank you for listening.